everyone. Thank you so much for joining. As I mentioned, I'm Sarah. I'm one of the university recruiters here at Veeva. And I specifically do the recruiting for the analytics development program. So, happy to answer any questions you have about that or just working at Veeva in general. And I've got two awesome panelists here with me that are going to help answer some questions about what it's really like to be in the analytics development program after a quick presentation. So I'll have them introduce themselves and then we'll get started with the presentation. So Deirdre, why don't you kick it off for us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Deirdre. I am an ASA in the New York office, and I started in July, and I'm super excited to talk with y'all.
Hi, I'm PJ. I am a marketing data analyst at Veeva. I started originally as an analytics services associate with Deirdre does, and then I switched in the last couple of months to do marketing data analytics, and I joined about a year and a half ago at this point.
Awesome. And if you don't know what those are, you will soon find out because we're going to give you a little presentation, and now there's lightning and thunder outside, so it scared me a little bit. I'm in New York City and there's a big thunderstorm outside, so wherever you're calling from, hopefully you are warm and dry and not in someone else over too. All right, great. So I'm going to share my screen so we can do the presentation. While I do the presentation, I can't really see the Q&A, but I promise you we will get to that. And I'm going to have Deirdre and PJ kind of keep an eye on the chat. If anything comes up during the presentation, like you missed something or it's confusing, just feel free to put it in there. I'm going to talk pretty quickly just so we can get through everything. And then, but again, we'll have a lot of time for Q&A after as well. So to start off with, so a little bit about Veeva in general as a company. We were founded in 2007, and within the industry cloud, we have two main areas that we serve customers. We have the development cloud, which spans clinical data management and operations, quality processes, regulatory, and drug safety. And then we have the commercial cloud, which spans medical affairs and commercial. We've also recently added business consulting, and our other solutions include data, software, and implementation services, as you'll see reflected in a lot of our development programs that we have. And then we did acquire Crossix in 2019, and this supports our data solutions for Veeva. So you'll hear Crossix throughout the presentation. And I'm sure Deirdre and PJ can talk a little bit more about that and what it's like to be in the Crossix organization within Veeva. So that is a little bit about Veeva in general. These are our vision and values. So we like to highlight these at the beginning of every presentation because it's really not something that we just put on our website and forget about. The values that we have really do drive, the decisions we make, how our employees are treated, and the success of our customers and all of the patients and healthcare entities that we ultimately impact. So the top one, obviously doing the right thing. I'll highlight on the next slide we became a public benefit corporation last year, and so you can read all about that on our website, but that really does go along with this first value of doing the right thing. So it reminds us the moral and ethical kind of barrier or boundaries when we are making decisions, so that it doesn't just impact our shareholders and the top people at the company, but it really does also benefit the employees that are working here, our customers, and anyone in the communities that we serve. And then customer and employee success, pretty self-explanatory. And finally, speed. Speed is an advantage for Veeva. I think, both with data, as in the analytics development program, but also our product development, our engineering. We, kind of operate like a startup. That's our roots. We came from. But to be nimble, responsive, ready for anything, those we continue to hold, even though now we are a global successful company. And this is a bit about the Public Benefit Corporation. Again, if you're interested in hearing more about what this is, you can find all of the news releases and statements from our CEO on our website about it when it first came out. But what I will say is this has been great because we've actually influenced other companies to do the same. So we're kind of a trendsetter in that way, in that we were the first public company to do it, but we are certainly not the last. Okay, and now we're going to transition into talking about the reason you are all here, which is the analytics development program. So Generation Veeva is the umbrella within Veeva where all of the development programs are housed. And I have a slide in a little bit that talks about all of the development programs. We have 5, analytics being one of them. So whenever you hear Generation Veeva, that's kind of all of our new grad development programs and early talent development programs. And we have our own vision and values within Generation Veeva. So obviously it's all about development, right? Both personal and professional. So that's our vision, is to build that pipeline into Veeva and really give you the tools and resources to succeed in a supportive environment. We have our own values as well, learning by doing. We do not believe in, just kind of putting you in the back of the room and having you watch for the first year that you're here. We really do sort of throw you in the deep end and have you learn by troubleshooting and finding the way that you best learn, or the way that you best work in terms of what your role is. And that in turn plays into developing the person. So we have resources such as professional development opportunities, mentorship, and also like team building and, finding out the best way that you operate in a corporate environment, in potentially what's your first job in the market, in the workforce. So that's kind of developing the person. And then fun. Hopefully Deirdre and PJ will also say that it's been fun. But we try really hard, just at Veeva in general too, but especially in Generation Veeva, to make sure that you don't just come into the office, sit on a computer, and then go home. But you really do get to know your coworkers. You feel like you're part of a real cohort. And we do things in the New York office like Halloween costume contests. We go to Yankees games. We have a kickball league in the spring and summer, things like that. So we do try to have fun, as well as all of the work that we do. So these are all our programs, as I mentioned. We do have 5 programs. 4 out of the 5 actually have an international component of some kind, whether that's Canada or Europe or Asia. But mostly they are US centered. And the caveat for the analytics development program is that we are located in the Northeast, in New York City. And so that's where a lot of our clients are. That being said, you would need to be within commuting distance of the New York office, even though it is a work anywhere position. And what work anywhere means is that on any given day, you can work from the office, you can work from home, you can work from a Starbucks, whatever is comfortable for you. But you would need to be within a reasonable commuting distance of the New York City office, so that when we have events, client meetings, trainings, anything like that, you can come into the office in a commute, essentially. The other ones we have that are available, some of them are fully remote. Engineering, I think you have to be within 2 time zones of your team. Consultants are completely remote. And then business consulting and sales are mostly in the Northeast and Midwest. So those are the programs that we offer. And you can find all of the information about those on our website as well, if you are interested in kind of looking at any of those. But within the analytics development program, we have 2 positions. So that is what Deirdre and PJ were talking about. Deirdre is right now an analytics services associate. So this is our storyteller, taking the data, pulling insights from it and presenting it to customers. So really you have that client management, client relationship management part of the job, whereas the marketing data analyst does not have that. So they're really on the back end, slicing and dicing the data, doing that analytics work. Definitely the more technical path. So if you're, if you've been working in analytics, you're working with, SQL, advanced Excel techniques, things like that, you'll actually be doing that analytics. So those are the 2 positions that we have. They do work together. Obviously, you're working on the same data and for the same clients, but they are two quite different roles. And again, we'll have them after the presentation kind of talk about what a day looks like or a potential project so you can get an idea of what the two positions do. So this is a bit about the skills that you can expect to develop once you're in the program. So you'll learn all about Crossix. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Crossix is the data side of what Veeva is doing. We have a proprietary platform called DIFA, which is Digital Impact for Advertisers. And you'll become an expert on how that platform delivers anonymized data insights to the brand marketing teams within pharma companies. It's also really important not only to learn about what we do, but also the industry, so you can better understand how our clients use our products, our software, and best support our clients kind of from start to finish. So you'll learn all about that. And then going a bit more into detail, an overview of what you might learn. The training for these positions last about 3 to 4 weeks. This year we're doing something different, and we're actually getting all of Generation Veeva together for a boot camp. The first 2 weeks are going to be in Boston, and it's basically going to be like Veeva 101. So everyone's going to learn about Veeva, our products, our clients, where we started, where we're going, all of that stuff. Then you'll come back to New York and do analytics specific training. But this is a bit about what you would learn in that. And then once you're done with training, you'll be staffed on a project after that, so you can really put what you've learned to practical use. And before we talked about what you were going to learn, this is how you're going to learn it. So you have your manager. That's a pretty typical relationship, as in any company. You have one-on-ones, goal setting, etc. But then you have these other two people who are kind of dedicated to your growth throughout the program. So your Crossix companion, you can kind of think of this person as like a big buddy. They're there when you need it for support. It's a less structured relationship. Someone to eat lunch with in the office, potentially has gone through the analytics development program, so knows what you're going through when you start. And then the mentor is a bit more of a structured relationship. So this person is a supervisor level or above. They usually have an assignment timeline, so they can, I think they really understand where you are and then where you potentially need to be successful throughout the analytics development program and then after. And so that first year is pretty structured. And then the second year, you'll take the reins and say, this is what I need from a mentor. This is what I'm looking for after the program. And then they can kind of help you through that. So it's a little more casual. And we also have learning opportunities, including workshops, conferences. You get professional development funds to spend every year. So if you want to take a class or, buy a book or something like that, you can do that as well. And then it is a 2-year program. So you will, the first year, start to really learn what you're doing, your role, go through training. And then your second year, you should expect to be promoted to a lead position if you're doing well, I guess. And then that would be, the ability to become a Crossix companion, take on more, responsibilities, potentially start managing those client relationships if you're on that side. A really strong emphasis on execution. And then after 2 years, you graduate out of the program. And following your participation in the program, there are several career paths you can take depending on your skills, interests, availability within the company. And then obviously you heard PJ mention, he moved from one position to the other. And also within programs, I think I saw someone ask that question. It's not common to move between programs, but it's not unheard of, and it's not allowed, if that makes sense. So you can move within programs. It just potentially, like, let's say you're a year and a half in and you're a consultant and you decide you want to be in the analytics development program, you may have to start as a first year again, because it's a completely different set of skills, or you start maybe 6 months in ish because you have to go through the training. So you wouldn't necessarily, like, let's say you've gotten a couple raises already, you may not start at the same level, if that makes sense. So it's not unheard of, but we really try during the interview process to give you all of the information so that you can make an educated decision, and find the best fit for you right off the bat. And like I said, it's not common. Most people just stay in the one that they are in. And then after the program, you do have the opportunity to go a lot of different places. So it might be better just to wait also and then transfer. But Veeva is a pretty big internally mobile company. So internal transfers are definitely common and encouraged. And that is it. That is the presentation. As I mentioned, I was trying to speed through it so we can get to all of your questions, but if you want to maybe take a picture of your screen, if you want to save our emails, I'm going to stop sharing my screen in about 10 seconds. So take a picture if you want with your phone or a screenshot or something. And then we will open it up. I'm going to start by asking some questions to our panelists that I kind of gave them earlier, just so you can hear a bit more about their experience. And then we'll get to the questions that you all have as well. Questions that I had already sent them earlier. Do you want to, both of you, do you want to just start off by, I kind of said what the roles were on a very high level, but if you want to start off with what it is you actually do. So PJ, I'll start with you. If you want to say what the heck a marketing data analyst does, and your experience overall in the program so far.
Yeah, happy to talk about it. So again, hi everyone, I'm PJ. What a marketing data analyst actually do in kind of broad terms is you work with healthcare data to help clients make decisions. And I'm more on the technical backend level. There's a couple different roles in what you're kind of specifically doing day to day. I'm on something called properties, which is I build the business rules for our DEFA product Sarah was talking about, and also some of the analyses we do. So if a client comes to us and says, I want to measure a campaign that says how many people are diagnosed with diabetes, I will actually write the metrics on the back end that measure how many people are diagnosed with diabetes. So then when they have their campaign, they can use that to actually measure success at reaching their goal. There's a kind of variety of people things do in the marketing data analyst role. You also can be running A/B testing analyses. You can be doing other kind of back-end work like running our DEFA product, making sure it's up every week. But really, if you're interested in a technical experience and want to be using data in interesting ways, I think it's a great role for anyone.
So I'm analytics services associate. So kind of similar to what PJ does, but on the front end. So I basically take the data that we have within our platform and we make recommendations to media agencies of our clients as to like how their campaign is doing, what they can do differently, what recommendations we have, anything that we thought was interesting to show them. And we present that data to them on a regular basis, and we try to keep the conversation going of how they can improve throughout the year and from year to year. And so, yeah, it's a lot. It's like a client-facing role. And then, I'm sorry, Sarah, did you ask like day to day?
Yeah, we can actually move into that if you want to. Just I know day to day, every time I get this question from a candidate, it's like, it's different all the time. You can't just say it's one day, which is great because you're not just doing the exact same thing, but on a typical, day, week, and then maybe in that way, talk about a project that you're working on so they can see like, okay, I wake up, I have this project that I'm working on. So this is what I do.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm like trying to figure out how to explain the role.
I know it's so hard, but try as best you can.
Yes. Even when my parents or my friend asks me, it always takes me a second. So like on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis, it obviously depends like any other position. It depends on the time of year, things happening in that sense. But a lot of the day-to-day for ASAs is communicating back and forth with media agencies about their media plans, any new media they're inputting, and making reports on how their media is doing. So using our platform to sort of optimize what they can do with all of the data that we have in terms of audience quality. So we kind of take data from both like the marketing end, but also sort of like healthcare data, which is kind of hard to conceptualize until you see it. But it's sort of the situation where with like your ad, you kind of understand how many people diagnosed with so-and-so converted to a certain brand, if that makes sense. So yeah, a lot of it is making reports on that, communicating with more media agencies, and meeting with them to see how we can help. And you're usually doing that with a team. So like for ADP, you're usually on a team with like a supervisor or another ASA, and you're kind of working through these reports and how do we communicate? How do we want to push things forward? So it's super nice in that sense, especially if any of you are marketing or are marketing currently, and you're used to those group-based roles, you're still in a group of people, and everybody at Veeva, especially in the New York office, who I've met and have had the pleasure to talk to every day, are super sweet and super open to helping, because it's definitely a big learning curve. But I think that's the exciting part about an ASA role, is that you're learning so much as you go. Even though it seems like these are like general like statements of what we do day to day, it's still something that you learn like a crazy amount, especially in the first 6 months, because I'm kind of a little past that first 6 months point. And I've learned so much info. So yeah, that's for day to day.
So on my end, I think it's a good mix between kind of individually focused work and then kind of collaborating with my team. My day starts with, we have something called a stand-up. So we all kind of go and talk about the status of our projects. I kind of work on kind of two major aspects of the projects: the DIFA stuff that Deirdre was talking about, which is our online like cloud-based platform where our clients can see the status of their campaigns and how it's performing. And then we also run things called offline analyses or net impact analyses, which are kind of more one-off projects that Deirdre, like mainly those are more seasonal. So kind of depending on the time of year, I'll be working on those too. So after I have to stand up and talk about how I'm kind of doing on my projects, I'll work independently on those. On most days, I'll have like a one-on-one or a check-in with someone on my team, whether that be a supervisor. So I'm checking in above me and making sure that I'm like clearly communicating the status of my projects and kind of reaching out about anything that I need to escalate. Or also I have meetings with people like below me, because I'm now a senior analyst. So I work with more junior members on the team, checking the status of their projects, making sure that everything's going well. And if I can assist at all, I can assist. Or then kind of other meetings pop up throughout the day too. I'll work with people in the ASA role, like Deirdre, just checking on, because we have to collaborate quite a bit. So I'll check on like questions we might have on how the campaigns are doing, how they want us to build certain metrics. But I would say it's a really good mix of being able to kind of be able to focus on projects and make sure you get your work done, but also getting to talk to people. And like Deirdre said, everyone's lovely at Veeva Crossix, so it's a great group of people to work with.
Awesome. I'm answering a few of the questions in the chat as you're talking. So I would say, I know you kind of mentioned, you've learned so much, and as you're working on projects and things, do you want to talk about maybe either like a favorite project you've worked on, and PJ, we'll start with you this time, or something maybe that like a project that you had that really taught you something, or you were, it was like a point of growth or like a challenge. So kind of either one of those, just to highlight a project that you've done for them.
Sure. Yeah, I would say, I think to echo Deirdre's point, across a lot of these projects we've worked on, the opportunities for growth are huge. Like I feel like I almost have learned more in the year and a half I've been here than all 4 years of school. So I think if you're willing to like learn and grow at a company, this couldn't be a better pick for you. In terms of projects that I really enjoy, there's kind of, for the platform we're building out, there's kind of two main projects. There's new launches where we kind of build a campaign from scratch. So like a bunch of new metrics, like a new type of campaign we haven't worked with before. So recently I worked with a new Alzheimer's medication. There's not a lot of campaigns we have in the Alzheimer's space. So you do a lot of interesting research into that. You have to find effectively how to measure things and work really well with the other internal teams to do so. I think I really like things like that, is it's both a challenge, like it keeps me interested throughout the day. I have to kind of make sure I'm really like being sharp on all the things I'm inputting, just because it's a new campaign. There's not a lot to fall back on that we've done previously. But part of that challenge is it's fun. Like you get to work with other teams, really collaborate across them, And I think that makes for a very interesting day and a dynamic day too. Because if I was doing the same thing every day, I think I would get a little bored.
Yeah. And on my side of like projects that I've enjoyed so far, I mean, I'm still fairly new, so I haven't been in charge of like, not in charge. I haven't been a part of like any project like through to through yet. But I will say that I've really enjoyed working on campaigns that have been unbranded, because a lot of them deal with like just trying to get the word out and trying to get people who are diagnosed with something that they know that they're diagnosed with something. So that's like the whole purpose of the campaign. I really enjoy those. And you kind of find new projects every day as an ASA, whether it's like a report that you're excited to show to the client, or even like a meeting that you really want to go well. So you kind of find little mini things throughout the week that you get excited for. And I find that like those little meetings or those little reports to clients where you see something performing well based off of like an optimization that you recommended, like those little moments are really cool, and you get to prepare for them each week, and it's really nice. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm kind of looking in the chat questions. A few about interviewing. So obviously, as they're job searching and looking for interviews, what was the job search like for you? What sort of, and Deirdre, if you want to talk, I know you like just went through it last summer, last spring. So, talk about the positions you were kind of looking for, why you applied to Veeva. And then, as you were kind of going through the interview process, like maybe tips you had to make you stand out, or what the interview process is like as well. And I can chime in obviously since I do it, but in terms of like a case study, what you would need to demonstrate, that kind of thing, just anything you want to talk about the interviews.
Sure. So I guess I'll start with why I applied. When I was applying to different positions, I was really looking for an analyst role. So weirdly, it was perfect. So I don't know how helpful that is, but it was kind of the exact role that I was looking for, where you were looking at data and sort of making optimizations and recommendations based off of it. But what I will say about the interview process, and I Googled this because I remember this acronym from when I was applying to, I believe it's STAR. And I had it pulled up, but now I don't, for interview.
Situation, task, action, and result.
Yes, exactly. Because when you're asked a specific question on an interview, you want to kind of point to a certain situation and how you handled that situation and the result. And hopefully the result was great, and you could show that through your story about not story, but what had happened. So like if you are asked a question on an interview about like, tell me about a time that you've dealt with conflict. It's really helpful to have a specific example in mind, especially when you're kind of like nervous and you're looking for like a good wording to say. You want to already know what your plan is to say, especially because a lot of those questions are common that you find. Like if you Google just like common interview questions, that's what I used to do, just to kind of have an example in mind for a situation. But yeah, so examples would be the biggest thing for interviews. And then in terms of like case studies, I found it really helpful just to be like as collaborative as possible, because you don't know the other people on the other line, like the other students or just applicants who are applying. And usually you're just kind of put into like a Zoom room or something with them, and you kind of want to be able to complete a task together. And so just be super open and ready to go. But yeah, I think it's something that's easier said than done. And it's definitely during like a nerve-wracking situation, but just, yeah, definitely be open.
Anything do you want to add, PJ?
No, it's been a not year and a half doesn't sound like that long, but it definitely has been a while. But I think all Dear just said was very appropriate. And I think the STAR, I use that too. So definitely a good technique.
Awesome. And as a recruiter, I'll kind of answer a few different questions about the interview process and things that I've seen in the Q&A and that I saw folks that sent in earlier. So one of the things kind of across all of the development programs that Veeva does is we have real recruiters. I'm one of them that actually look at your resume and your transcript. That's a lot of what I do with my time is kind of like look over resumes. So you actually have a human that's looking at your application. It doesn't just like go into a system and is never heard from again. So, Veeva having that sort of small tech company feel while being this huge company is something that our HR and like talent team really strives to continue. We also aim to try to get back to you within about 3 business days. So as someone who's gone through the job search process way more times than I would like to say, it's annoying and frustrating. And I know, especially as a recruiter, I hate like breaking hearts when I reject someone. But at least you'll hear from us. Like, some companies, actually when I was applying to this job and I got the job and I had started, I then got an email that was like, hey, unfortunately, we're not going to hire you. It was like another company, but thank you so much for applying. And this was literally 4 months later. And I was like, well, good thing I wasn't waiting for you because I already started a job. But yeah, you will always hear back from us. And then the other thing is the interview process. You always start out with a screening interview, usually with a recruiter or someone who's in the program then. So like in the analytics development program, in the business consulting development program. If you move forward from that, there's always some type of case study. So in analytics, you have a group case study, as Deirdre was talking about, an individual case study that could be, it's very tailored to each position. So obviously the marketing data analyst is a bit more technical. The analytics service associate is a little less technical. And then you'll always end with an interview with our hiring manager. It's kind of like, are you going to fit here? Do you want this? What are your future career goals? All of that. So that's like the standard interview process across most of the positions. And then someone asked a great question. What are some skills and traits Veeva is looking for when looking at applicants? So I do that. So I can tell you what I look for. I think the number one thing I tell students and candidates for any roles at Veeva, but especially with analytics, because it's so applicable in terms of like, we want to see that you haven't just maybe been in a class, but you can take that concept and apply it to a real world situation. So if you've done an internship, that's great. That's number one, put that on your resume and highlight what you did in it. But we're also not requiring you to have a bunch of internships, especially in the last few years. We know internships have been limited. And so if you even have projects that you've worked on, like I interviewed someone the other day who was in the Army for 7 years and is kind of transitioning out of that. But in their last year, as they were sort of transitioning out, they took some like Google Analytics courses and Coursera courses in like SQL and things like that. And on their resume, they highlighted projects that they'd done through those courses and things that they had just done on their own of like the baseball World Series that had to do with analytics. But it showed me that they knew what they were doing. Like they could actually take data, whether it was from baseball or from COVID vaccines, something, and then they put that with the numbers, that they came up with or their results on their resume. That's going to stand out much more than saying, I took microeconomics or I am, it's great that you're a marketing analytics major. Yes, that will probably catch my eye in the analytics development program since we do marketing analytics. But if you can't demonstrate that you've done anything with that, and your entire resume, let's say, is finance related, it's not going to really show me that this is what you want to do. So I would just say, and I know it takes a lot of time, but try to tailor your resume at least to the type of positions that you're going to be applying to. So like have an analytics resume if that's what you're going to go for, have a finance resume if that's maybe what else you want to do. And then be able to really show, like, even if you have a section at the top that's projects, that's really going to stand out a little bit more than just listing, a resume or nothing at all. Because it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't know what classes you took. I don't know if you did, what you did in those classes, but if you have projects that you can highlight, whether it's from an internship or from a class you took even on your own time or something that you did, I think that would be yeah, that's going to be really helpful. Okay, great questions about kind of how to apply and where to send your resume. I'm seeing a couple of those. So, and then timelines as well. So in terms of applying, we are actively applying or asking for applications and hiring for all of our development programs. So I would definitely, if you're interested, go on our website. I'm going to put that in the chat. So that you can actually go on and see all of our, oops, don't put the little after the little comma thing at the end of there. Okay. You can go on and see all of the different positions we have within the program. We also have a pretty robust blog and YouTube channel. I know I read a lot about that when I was interviewing to find out what the heck the analytics development program was and like what Veeva was. And we ask current associates in the programs to talk about projects they've done, their favorite parts about working at Veeva, all of that, so that you can get an idea of what you would do day to day in the different programs. Especially if maybe on this call you're thinking you might want to apply for another one, go on there, check them out. And then you can apply actually straight on WayUp as well. That'll take you to the same like applicant tracking system as if you applied on our website. So I think the link is up there. You can look at our company profile, apply to those positions, and it'll go to the same place. I will still see them. And if you mentioned that you came to this presentation, I may take a look at your resume first. I'm just saying, because sometimes if I see you at a career fair, or if you come to one of our events, it just shows me that you've heard what we have to say, and it's, you know, you're kind of like, then you applied. I know that you're very interested and you're not just like putting out your resume to everyone. And then in terms of timelines, like I said, we're actively hiring right now for summer 2023 positions. I mentioned that boot camp, so everyone's going to start at the same time. It's about mid-July. And then the internships, I answered a couple of those on the chat, but in case you haven't seen them there, we don't offer internships for analytics over the summer. Unfortunately, we only have one internship, and it is for software engineering students, either after their junior year or after their first year as a master's student. So it would be in the summer, kind of right before you graduate. And then, so any positions that are open right now in the analytics development program and everything but engineering is going to be full-time starting this summer. So you would have to have been graduated already. And we are looking mainly for new grads. So if you have more than 1 or 2 years of experience, I would point you actually toward either our consulting development program, because that is a like 2 to 3 years of experience, or any of our other positions at Veeva that are outside of Generation Veeva. Those are going to be our more experienced positions. The Generation Veeva programs are really for like fresh grads, because it's tailored to your first year in the workforce. So if you've had some experience, it may be a little redundant for you. And then there was something else I was going to say. So you need to have been graduated latest spring 2023, so like May or June. If you're graduating in 2024, you can still actually apply, and then we will put you in a little folder sort of in our tracking system, and we can reach out to you when we're starting to hire for next year. So if you are interested, go ahead and apply, and then we'll reach out to you in the fall when we're ready to do that. So I think that was kind of all the questions about applying. Some of the other ones I can just kind of do specific to that person. But the other question that's always kind of fun, or just, to hear that I always get from candidates is, Deirdre and PJ, do you want to talk a little bit about the culture at Veeva? We heard about your jobs, we heard about projects, but what's it actually like to work here, and maybe what's been like your favorite thing about working here so far?
I love the culture of Veeva. It's a very nice and like supportive team. I think anytime I've had a question, I've never been afraid to ask anyone that. And I have been in other internships, but other roles that were not as nurturing. So I think definitely for starting a career and being willing to grow, that's a really great opportunity that you have to take advantage of. And no one's ever going to be mad at you for asking a question, which I think is a very nice virtue of working here. And then on the fun side too, it's just a very nice team. It's a very young team too. So joining this program, you'll meet a lot of people your age. There'll be opportunities to socialize like within work, like you eat lunch together. We have a nice rooftop that we can eat lunch on that has a great view of the Empire State Building. And then too, there are people I also will hang out with outside of work. So I've made like genuine friends from this program as well, which is very nice for someone who newly moved to the city.
Yeah, it's a very inviting culture, like PJ was saying, and like a big thing is like Tuesday lunch. I feel like I've seen more people in the office those days than any other days, obviously, because there's free lunch. But yeah, I think my favorite thing so far, and like obviously a little newer as well, was we had JV Connect, which was I think the first in-person one in a while. I might be getting that wrong, but I think it was, yes. Okay.
Yes, since 2019. Yeah.
Yes. And it was very cool because something about the ADP program that I really like is that you're coming in with other people who are kind of the same boat as you. Like you all just graduated, you're all kind of trying to figure out the role and the position. And you're all kind of on different teams a lot of the time. So you're sort of navigating that together. After you have training together, you kind of are put on different teams and you're able to help each other through that and answer any questions. And that's with supervisors and people not only in the program as well. Everybody's super open to helping you through anything. PJ still helps me with ASA stuff and he is not in the role. But yeah, so it's super nice. And then also JV Connect. I started talking about that and then stopped. But we went to Charlotte and we had a bunch of sessions about Veeva and Crossix, and we got to meet people outside of just the New York office. And we talked about our roles and we got to learn more about people who you wouldn't normally get to speak to unless you were on their team, and like roundtable situations. And you got to bond with the people that are in your office as well. And there were fun events too. We went whitewater rafting for a day. So that was really cool. But there's these events that happen often that allow you to kind of bond with people who you aren't necessarily like sitting next to, like, or is on the other side of the office, or you run into when you go grab lunch, but that's about it. Like they have events sprinkled in every month to kind of get everyone together, which I think is really nice, especially when you don't organically see people all the time, especially with it being a hybrid role. So yeah, overall awesome culture.
Yeah, and we have the boot camp this year, so you'll get to really get to know not only other folks from ADP, but also the consultant development programs and things, and then go to JV Connect. This last year we went to Charlotte, as Deirdre mentioned. The last day we always do sort of like a fun event, and we went whitewater rafting this year, which was one of the most fun things I've ever done. And then we ziplined off of this like huge tower, and it was really fun. I had such a great time. I don't know where we're thinking of doing it this year. Maybe Boston again. I don't know, but yeah. So that's like a really fun. And I'll echo the culture. I think with Veeva being sort of a work anywhere, global kind of remote company, a lot of people ask, does that impact the culture? And a lot of students I know, and like recent students who went through some part of college during the pandemic, are kind of over being on Zoom, honestly. But I would say there's a lot of incentive to go into the office. If there's always space, there's going to be snacks, there's always free lunch. As I mentioned, there's standing happy hours every Thursday during the summer that are on our rooftop. And we have holiday parties. We do, as part of the ADP program, we do like escape the rooms. We went to Barcade, which is a bar in Chelsea that has a bunch of arcade games, things like that. So there's always like incentives to get to know your coworkers outside of just the project work. And I think PJ mentioned this, like I hang out with my coworkers outside of even those events as well. Like we'll go to happy hour, we'll go to, we have a Barcade fan in the house. Yeah, it's so much fun. And we went to see like rooftop movies in the fall, just on our own. We watched the World Cup together. So you definitely do get to know your coworkers, even though like today I'm at home because I'm first of all, it's raining and I didn't feel like going into the office, but also I got moving boxes delivered today, which is, again, that's a really great thing about work from anywhere. Just as like one of my favorite things about Viva is that I didn't have to take the day off to wait here for 3 hours while my moving bins were being delivered. Or if I have a dentist appointment, I can like run out and do that, or take my dog for a walk or something, and not have to like take off the whole day or go home because I'm already working from home. So I think it gives you a lot of flexibility to kind of be an adult as well, which a lot of workplaces don't take that into account. So that's been a really great thing. Like, they trust you to get your work done as long as you are getting your work done. And yeah, and then I would kind of echo, the people have been my favorite thing about working at Viva. So this is a great question that I would also like to hear the answer to. I know that you both are fairly new to the company, but in terms of like, conversations you've been in related to the analytics development program, where do you see projects going, clients, new things happening in the next 5 years?
I could start. Definitely View is very exciting. We recently had kind of a meeting where we talk about hills to climb, which is kind of our goals for the year and moving forward. And it's very exciting. Like, we're kind of continually growing, and we're kind of working on the plans to do that in interesting, exciting ways. Our platform is going to have a lot of new developments to make it more exciting and interesting for clients, and better serve their interests. Kind of internal workflows are getting more efficient and kind of better across the board. So really everything is getting better. Anything like that I finding is a pain point in like people doing their jobs day to day, people are on it, getting it addressed, so we can just kind of continue to grow and kind of mesh better as a like one big team working towards a common goal.
Yeah, I think PJ he said it perfectly, with just like the internal processes. Like, I came in at a very lucky time where there is like a new process for one of our bigger reports. So that's really nice, because you hear about all of like the prior things that had to happen in order for our team to get to the point where we could have things streamlined so well. So internally, I think there's so many things going on. I did miss the Hills to Climb meeting because I was out of office for my birthday, but there are definitely some exciting hills to climb for 2023 that I'm sure will be shared at the next Q1 meeting for 2023. But yeah, a lot of cool things happening internally constantly within teams to make everyone's day easier, but also allow us to get really cool insights.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Because I don't sit in on the same meetings as you all, since I'm on the employee success. So it's interesting to hear that. I would say too, as like a plug for how great it is to be an employee here, is that last year when we had our hills to climb, just for our team, we were surprised by, we got on this call, and then the head of employee success said, if everyone can send their shipping addresses, like just to make sure we have the right ones. We were like, okay. And then a couple days later, shoes showed up in our mailboxes, and they were shoes for to climb our hills that we had for our hills to climb. And they were like nice on cloud tennis shoes, sneakers. So yeah, that was a pretty great surprise. But so yeah, funny story about the hills to climb. But yeah, we always are planning those, putting those in place in every quarter, and then yearly as well, like our 2023 hills to climb we just got, and those are focused across divisions and then also on our specific team. So like my specific Generation Viva team has our own hills to climb, and we'll kind of evaluate that throughout the year. And a couple of things I want to mention that usually sort of come up as questions, kind of speaking of goal setting. So one of the things is there room for growth at Veeva? I think this was mentioned maybe a couple times, but there are definitely opportunities for growth. Not only is it a fast growing company in itself, but also we just pride ourselves on putting in place, objectives to reach, goals to attain. And then once you do that, you can kind of level up and go to the next step. So especially within Generation Viva, as I mentioned during the presentation, the growth trajectory is pretty steep in the beginning, as opposed to maybe the first 2 or 3 years at another company. So that is something, not even just at Veeva, but I would say just the benefit of being in in a development program, a rotational program, a early career talent program at other companies, something to look out for, because you don't just come in as an associate and then stay in the same role for 2 or 3 years and hope to get a raise or a promotion. We really focus on that growth. So that's something to keep in mind. And then also, what was the other thing I was going to say? It's been a long day. Now I forgot what it was. What were we talking about? Yeah, completely lost it. But anyway, and are there any other questions? I tried to answer most of them by like chat or in person. But before we kind of sign off, if there are any other questions, we would be happy to answer them. All right. Well, I retyped our emails in one of the answers to the in the Q&A. So if you do think of any questions or just want to connect, feel free to email us, look us up on LinkedIn, that kind of thing. But thank you so much for coming. This was great. And, hope to see some of your applications in our applicant system soon. And thank you again also to Deirdre and PJ for taking an hour out of their day to be here with you all and tell us all about analytics development program.